Greetings, bloggers, vloggers, followers, and potters. Dustin here from Dustin's Dynasty with another edition of this week's vlog. You haven't been following me for a while. My name is Dustin. I'm autistic. I have mental health challenges. I've been doing this autism thing for nearly 4 decades, and this is my 330 something vlog. I do a vlog every week. I do blogs every day, and we'll give information of how you can access it at the end of the video. Little about me is I've been living independently for over 6 years, and I've been working a part-time job for nearly 15 years. So without further ado, let's go into this week's topic. And it is about accepting feedback and respecting authority. So sometimes, growing up, I was always one who, regardless of who was an authority figure, whether it was a family figure or an authoritative figure in a school or a workplace, I had a hard time accepting feedback from them, just simply because I didn't like hearing feedback. I didn't like being told something that I wouldn't say that I wouldn't agree with. I would say more that rather than it was something more that I was told that I was doing something wrong. And it was hard for me to accept that. And sometimes it still is. But as I'm closing out on the fourth decade of life, I'm still realizing that I'm doing much better in that regard. I can accept things more easier and know when I am in the wrong or if I'm in the right, and how to properly advocate for when I feel that I'm in the right. Sometimes, oftentimes, I would say autistic people and myself included would like to we don't like to we don't we like to react, and we like to get upset and find our way, want to call out people's attention for what they said about us because we feel offended for what we said, for what was said about something that we did or didn't do, or or having feedback or constructive criticism about something in our lives. And sometimes it makes it worse, and sometimes it doesn't do any good to do that. It causes a negative reaction. And over the last, I would say, 6 years, because I hadn't been taking care of my mental health in the way that it was, when something was directed or given to me or told to me, I I would fly off of the handle rather quickly. And this sometimes resulted in some pretty bad meltdowns, along with reacting to others in a way that I should have never had been able to. Partly some of those events were because I was blindsided to what was really a part of the situation. And for years I didn't know and didn't understand it. And now I do. And I didn't respect those authority figures behind decisions, particularly some of those behind some of the changes that have been made in the past year or so. I talk about it a lot. I talk about, the change with the bus and everything. And I had a hard time accepting that for a year. And it wasn't because part of me knew it was a good thing, and there were many good things about it, but I couldn't let go of the past, and I couldn't let go of feeling this anger and this feeling towards people who in authority who made that decision, or why they weren't feeling that they weren't caring so much, because it was not that, I felt that their feedback was not valid or understandable, or that the world revolved around me. And I can tell you numerous times, not only in a work or a program or a school situation or even a family matter, where people always often thought that the world revolved around me. And many times it was because I didn't take what I didn't want to hear, or what caused change or had caused a sudden disruption in my day, very easy. And I would take my anger and my feelings out on people and things. And in the beginning, when I after I would say I was first diagnosed, and probably before that, it was done in a physical manner, and eventually that waned to only being with my parents, and then it waned only being verbally aggressive. And it's something that I've worked on for a long time. Sometimes we're told things we don't want to hear, and that's just how it is. I think a lot of people are very autistic people are very rigid. They like things to be the way they were. And for me, for 20 years, something that was very rigid in my life and that I could always count on was there. And then within a week's time frame, it was changing. And even though now I see over a year later that that thing has made things better, it's still hard to accept, but I never reacted negatively. Although I may have expressed my frustrations, I did so not in such a nice manner. I did in a way that was appropriate, but it wasn't truthful and it wasn't factual. And I didn't sit back and, you know, I didn't digest all that was involved in what was going on. And sometimes we're told about ourselves and things that we didn't do or can't do, or we may need help. And sometimes people are there to help us. And when they are, we need to accept that help and see how people can work with us. To understand, how if they're willing to help us, they see the value that we have in other areas, or they compliment us in other areas. And we need to be willing to accept that and feel that we are valued and work towards finding a solution that is helpful for us. And how that can be very interesting and very, you know, how that can work to be in our benefit, because we're able to respect each other when we see good points about ourselves on the both ends. And sometimes what is said that is when we first approach as hurtful as an autistic person isn't as hurtful when it's addressed properly. So it's always to be important to be polite. It's always important to think before you speak, and be thankful for pointing that out. Always say thank you for pointing that out. Be able to read and listen. The comments. Read. If I always think sometimes it's people know it's best to address issues with me via email. I read through those emails. I scope them 2 or 3 times to fully digest what is being told to me, what needs to be addressed, how it needs to be addressed, and how do I respond? And I think about how I respond. I don't just whip up some words and send them out, because I have to think about what makes me look as a person when I send those words. What does that look like? How does that feel? Is it going to come across as a harsh way? And I've always been taught, whether it been in post-secondary vocational training, community college, to never send an email when I'm angry. So sometimes that might mean that I need to take a walk, and cool down or take some deep breaths, but and get my bearings together and understand, that it'll be all right, but I need to come up with a solution and an answer, and just you know work at solving the problem. And again, if the help is being offered, take advantage of that, because not everybody will offer help. And even though it may not be helpful, if it's not helpful, then don't take it. But if you feel that there is value to that help, then you need then take it. It can be said, it's probably said enough times in the autistic community, but when somebody is verbally or communicating with you and giving you feedback, it's important to give eye contact. Um, I do very well with eye contact. I've not had any struggles with it recently. I know it's a part of reality. I think because in the 4 decades of living, I've been so eye contact is the one thing that's always been pressed when communicating with others. So I've always been known to use it and do it, how to make that eye contact good, and nodding is always a good thing. And it's always important to be respectful when getting and receiving feedback and giving feedback. It's always important to be respectful of what the opposing party is. Same with authoritative figures. It's always important to respect them. You may not agree with their decisions. You may not see. You may want to think things about them that you may not feel is the way that they should be or how they should be. You may want to call them out on their faults. Don't call them out on their faults. Don't ever call them out on their faults because that's not appropriate. It's wrong, and and that could realize in reality juncture another conversation with you calling out your fault, and it just stirs the pot of anger, and you don't want to do that. So, you got to focus on the positive. I've already said that, uh, you know, every everyone makes mistakes. I make mistakes. I'm human too, just like everybody else. Even though a lot of times I write about, positivity, or I make words in a way that are nice and understanding. I'm a human. I made mistakes in my life. I made many mistakes, more than I count. The last 6 years has been nothing but mistakes for me, but I learned from them and I move on. So nobody's perfect. And everybody has weaknesses. It's it can be you can always everybody has weaknesses. They want to do things that they want to do, and you know darn it if you're not going to stop them, right? So you have to work at controlling those weaknesses and making them making what is possible for you to do what is told and not insubordinate anyone. No one, like I said earlier, it's things, mistakes happen, criticisms normal. Getting feedback or being told something, given a directive, giving direction is always normal. You can't have everything that you want. And I think for the longest time, for myself growing up, everybody was believed that if I didn't get what I want, I was going to flip out on them, and I was going to react negatively and not be able to digest that information, or I would react in a way that was unbecoming of me. And over the last few years, I've been around my peers and others who have looked up and seen nothing but the world for me. And one time I reacted in a way that was very unbecoming of me. And this person who looked up to me really, really was really shocked. And I think, when I had meltdowns over the years, when I was not in my or not with my parents, but maybe in dating them, people were shocked at the way I reacted. Well, it was never physical with anyone. It was more of a verbal aggression and screaming and yelling. And some of those staff who have known me forever and only seen the good would always be shocked when they saw that. And I'm proud to say, I'm not proud to say, but some of the newer staff have seen me in those moments, and some of them have come to my, and even some of the newest staff who have been seasoned have come to my rescue when I've been in a situation that was not all totally my fault. And sometimes, you don't think about the unsung hero, but that was the one day it was, you know, um, you know, it's not the end of the world. You have the ability to get better. And, it's, what that comment or what that feedback that is given to you, or what that directive that is given to you, it's not the end of the world. I was one who always was, you know, if somebody told me something I didn't want to hear, or I was given directives, or I was told to change things, I wanted to run away from it. It was just my anxiety. I have anxiety. That was how it was going to be with me. I was going to run away from all the problems, and I was going to hide. And that was one of the biggest things I had to deal with last year, or a year and a half ago, a year and some months ago, when we had to deal with the big change. We had lots of changes in the past year, and either I crashed and relapsed, or I didn't take it well, and I wanted to avoid it, and I wanted to run away. Sometimes change is good, and last year I had learned that change can be good. Although change is different, and there's different ways things are addressed, and that includes getting feedback and respecting authority and following authoritative direction, you still have to respect that person. And, but it's not the end of the world. You have to look at your pros and cons of every situation. And if you're told something, it's not the end of the world. If I cannot stress that enough, it just isn't. It's not. And for the longest time, I would think, oh, I got it. I'm not doing this anymore. This is BS. It's the end of the world. I'm not going to play their game anymore. And I'm going to take, as someone would tell me, I'm going to take my marbles and go home. It's asinine. It doesn't really sum everything up. And, sometimes you have to work to make things better. You have to work on improving yourself sometimes. Sometimes, a lot of times for me, when I was given feedback, I had to see what was wrong with me and work at solving my end of the issue, along with working with the other party to see what I could do for their issue as well, their end of the issue as well. Ask for suggestions, sit down and have that conversation. Conversation or communicate it or whatever it feels helpful for you. Have that conversation. And sometimes we take what we're told and we blow it out of proportion so badly that we want to run away with the problem and not want to address it. But if they're offering suggestions, or maybe you can offer a suggestion and maybe go back and forth on things, maybe that would bring a solution. It's most of all, like I said earlier, it's important to relax when you take care of when you work through it. It's important to breathe. The box breathing is always a good method. The 4-4-4-4, and that has helped me. I've done that recently. Take a break. I always encourage, if you're in an environment, you need to have a safe space that you can go to take a break, to get away from where the main area of attraction is. And there have been times, even with my family or even with others, that I was suggested to go to a different space and calm down, and I didn't listen. And even though those days are over with family, I still regret that. I still regret not listening and not doing what was suggested to me, because in the end it would have helped me. And more as we move forward in life, closing out on the fourth decade of life and going into the fifth, we're learning more and more that those things help me. And I was learning to use them more in my life. Importantly, it's also important is to vent about it to somebody like a caring, like a family member or a friend you trust. Just, hold them in strict confidence and, understand that, it's okay to feel the way you feel, but, um, that you can't change anything. That's the important thing about it. They can't, while you're inventing this thing, it's important to know that they can't change nothing. There was times when I would vent to my mother about things and situations that changed, or things that were told about me that were different, or that I had problems with. And quite frankly, I wanted her to change them. I wanted her to advocate for me. But I knew deep down, even though she would advocate for me, she taught me the tough love that I needed to advocate for myself, even though getting through meltdowns or anything like that where I was by myself, I would, many people would say, well, mom, come to the rescue. And sometimes, she taught me sometimes that tough love, I had to be the tough love and get through that situation myself, or experience the consequences. It's that I have a very intellectual mind. I can do those things. I know how to do those things. And and sometimes you need a help, and sometimes I've had the grace of help in those situations, but I didn't just succumb to the rescue of family or somebody to bail me out of my problems. My notes over here, I do apologize. So, and over the past year, I've had some new authority figures, and I've had to respect some authority figures. And some of the things is, you got to value them as who they are and not call out their flaws. And sometimes it's often that you're told things, or you want, or you believe things, and you want to call out their flaws. But in reality, some people are just authoritative figures. And even though they may want to power trip you, or they may want to, or you don't want to hear what they have to say to you, sometimes you have to hear that sage advice. You have to hear what is told, and you have to ultimately respect their decision when it comes to being what is being directed. It's not easy, and you want, like I've said time and time again, you don't want to hear it, you don't want to be a part of it, but sometimes there's a reality that has to be met. And if you want your life to be better, or you want your life to improve, or you want things not to change any more drastic than what they are going to change, then you have to follow through with them. Respect, like I said, respect their decision. You may not agree with it, you may not think it's what should be, but it's always important to respect it. And don't call them out on on their dirty laundry. Don't air out your dirty laundry. Don't air out their dirty laundry, because don't go against it, because that is insubordination. You don't want to be insubordinate of anyone, because that's further consequential. Don't discount them for who they are. There are people who have to make decisions that you yourself may not totally know what the whole situation behind it is, even though you're led to believe things that are what you think they are, and what you think everything, but you really don't. So you're not the one that has to make those hard decisions, or make those calls on things are that are matter, and even though they change your life, it's important to still be respectful and not discount them. um you know you know be an example to others. And I think that was one of the biggest things that got me through some of the changes that I've had to experience last year. Was, I knew I couldn't react negatively when changes were being made. I couldn't get angry. I couldn't get upset. I couldn't take my anger out on those behind the change, or those that were the cause of change, because I knew there were other people looking up to me and valuing me for who I was. And just reacting was going against everything that people had known me to mature to be. And part of maturity is knowing that you can't react, and you can't get upset because things don't go your way. It's very important for that. You know, um, Always right your wrongs. And I've done this a lot in the past few months. I've had discussions about the way I was feeling a lot the past year about some changes. And, I think, getting some of that, having some of that healthy discussion, not arguing, not going back and forth, not getting angry, but also discussing that, maybe my mind wasn't clear. Maybe I wasn't thinking, maybe because I wasn't well, I wasn't, in the spirit that I needed to be. And that, things are said that shouldn't be said. But if a person of an authoritative figure gives you the feedback that you may not want to hear, you still have to respect it and take it for what it is. And even though you may not agree with it, you still have to do not insubordinate that, and understand that it's what the reality is. And even though it's something that you don't see, because you can't see it in a way that it needs to be seen, it can be a challenge. Take responsibility for your actions. And that has been, I'm one who after reacting, or after getting upset, I like to take responsibility as sort of putting a band-aid on the reaction that I made. And this can be more so in a personal manner, but in the end, I know that what I did was wrong. And I know that sometimes what I've done over the past few years may have been very frustrating to others, including family, uh, authoritative figures, and such. It's not easy that I want to be that way. It's not, it wasn't who I was. And now that I see that, I'm working at better and making myself a better person. And it's always important to take the help, as I said before, take the help that's given to you. If somebody offers you suggestions or advice, it's important to take advantage of that because you don't know if you can't handle the situation on your own or you can't talk it out, then it's important to use those advantage, use those resources, and use those suggestions that are given to you to be able to work with them. So I think that covers it all. I know it was a very thoughtful vlog. I took notes because I had a lot of things I wanted to talk about in the vlog today, and I hope I brought them all out. I think I did. I went through them line item by line item, and that's not normally like me, but I want to be more organized when I come to speak to you every week. So I do want to thank you for listening. And if you haven't already, be sure to give a like and subscribe to my channel. I appreciate all the new followers and I love bringing you content. If you haven't already, be sure to follow me on Facebook, Instagram, X, and Pinterest. That handle is Dustin's Dynasty. I'm on the web. That's www.dustinsdynastyusa.com. And lastly, I have a link tree with all my handles to where this vlog is put on podcasts and all my other content and my socials and my websites. That handle is Dustin's Dynasty under Linktree. Again, I want to thank you for listening. Take care of yourself. Have fun this weekend. Do something for you, and we'll talk at you soon. Stay safe out there, and bye for now.